feeling like I'm Akademiks. Can't run away.
Adam 22, he's starting up a debate that I think people are going to chime into. He has said anyone who calls Tupac a LA rapper is out of their mind. He says, I have way more plausible case of being like considered from LA than Pac does. This is what he says. He says, Tupac lived in LA for less than a year. Anyone who calls him an LA rapper is out of their mind. The level of cap is an atrocity. He says he lived in LA for 9 months. I've lived in LA for 17 years. I'm not from LA, but I have way more plausible case than Pac does to be considered from LA. Let me read what some of these comments says. Adam says, I've been in LA for 17 years. Tupac did 9 months, and he didn't even claim it. Says it's impossible to disagree. Somebody said, well, Pac spent 1 year in LA, but he put out multiple West Coast anthems that's been unmatched till this day. Pac was only in LA for a year, but became the poster boy for all of California and the world, throwing up the W fingers. Pac only in LA for a year, but his legacy in the culture can still be seen and heard in music, blah, blah. Adam spent 17 years in LA, and all he's done was let the hood hit his wife while he watched. So I guess that's pretty West Coast, because it ain't no fun if the homies can't get none. That's kind of interesting. I don't know what Wack 100 thinks about it. I think Wack hates Tupac, though. He like really hates Tupac. I don't know why. That's an interesting one. What do you guys think about that? Somebody says, I'm bugging. Shannon will beat the fuck out of Shakur in a street fight. Well, how do you know that Shannon Sharp could fight? I get it. Weight classes, I get all of that. But how do you know? One's actually a professional fighter. The other, we don't know if he can fight at all. By the way, speaking of which, this is also interesting. So Boosie's suing Jacob Wohl and Jack Berkman. He claiming he paid $600,000 for them to help secure a Trump pardon in his federal gun case, and he never got it. He feels like he's scammed. Now, this is like an interesting one, because part of me is looking at this like, is this the equivalent of basically calling the cops because somebody stole your cocaine? It's like, nigga, that shit's illegal, bro. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Now, the idea of Boosie paying for a pardon, I don't know if that there's a legality that says you could do that or not. Obviously, you would have to do it to the president. I don't know if the president could sell that. But the idea of Boosie using money to try to get a pardon, there's some ethical problems there, of course. But if you know how pardons work, it kind of are done by these people who are kind of like ancillary to the president. And those are the people that are going to get your case in front of the president that he could review and get a recommendation. The recommendation is going to come from his closest confidants. So when Boosie pays $600,000 to these guys, clearly he must believe that they have the president's ear. They could recommend the president doing a pardon, and they think that he could be in line for a pardon. Here's the thing about the money. The money, you don't pay the money contingent on you getting pardoned. You pay the money for them to do the work for you to be considered to be pardoned. And that's where I'm kind of like, I'm wondering what Boosie thought was going to happen. Or maybe they just flat out lied to him and say, yo, if you pay us $600,000, you're getting pardoned. Right? Let me see. Boosie pardon. It says Boosie seeks a $300,000 refund after pardon effort falls through. Baton Rouge rapper Boosie is trying to get back $300,000 from a Washington lobbying firm he hired to help him seek a pardon from the President Donald Trump, according to Notice, a nonprofit news outlet that covers the federal government. Boosie, whose real name is Torrance Hatch, paid paid Berkman and Associates $600,000. Wow. In 2025 to push a pardon in his federal gun case. Federal lobbying records show that the firm registered to contact the White House, the U.S. Department of Justice, and Congress on Hatch's behalf. Let's see if we could find the lobbying records. Here we go. Oh, here we go. So we should see Torrance Hatch here. Torrance. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, yeah, you see it. Torrance Hatch paid 600,000. Who's Joseph Schwartz? Let's look him up. Or actually, let's look up this guy, Steve Warnecki. Who's that? Interesting. Did he get a pardon or something? And I'm wondering why he went with these guys. Huh. No, he didn't get a pardon. I'm wondering who kind of like finessed Boosie to say, hey, pay these guys. They're going to lobby for you to get a pardon and it'll work. Interesting. Notice reports that Hatch is now taking a dispute to arbitration, a private process used to settle disagreements outside of court. According to the report, Hatch's attorney said the lobbyist told her told him, I guess, around New Year's Day that Trump had signed the pardon and they were waiting for the White House to announce it. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. Oh, no, told her because I guess Boosie's lawyer is a girl. So according to the report, Boosie's own lawyer said that the lobbyist had told them that the pardon was already signed. The pardon was actually never announced, and Hatch's attorney was unable to confirm that one had been granted. The news outlet also reported that the White House aide told Hatch's attorney that the aide has not seen a pardon request even filed for Hatch, which means basically the process didn't even start. The agreement included a possible refund. It said the signed agreement says that Hatch was required to pay the full $600,000 up front. The contract says $300,000 was non-refundable, but the other $300,000 would be returned if Hatch didn't receive a pardon by a set deadline, and ask for the refund in writing. So basically, the first $300,000 is like a deposit; he can't get it back, theoretically. But the other $300,000, if he didn't get a pardon by a certain time, he should be able to get that back. Berkman and Associates disputes that it agreed to return half the money. Now, there got to be a contract, right? Look, it says the contract. Let's click on the contract. Can we see the contract? Here's the contract. Okay. This is September 25th, 2025. This is a retainer agreement. Dear Mr. Hatch, we're pleased to work together with you on the assignment detail in the following agreement. The agreement is entered into this day by Torrance Hatch, also referred as a client, or aka Boosie, and J.M. Berkman and Associates, located at blah, 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 based upon the mutual promises contained herein and other good and valuable considerations. The parties identified above, intending to be bound hereby, enter into the following agreement. Here's the background. J.M. Berkman and Associates is a District of Columbia consultant and lobbying firm in good standing with over 40 years of combined partner and staff experience in legal and ethical lobbying. Public relations and policy consultant. Consultant employs a broad range of tactics to serve a diverse clientele. Consultants maintains and shall continue to maintain all necessary licenses and registrations required by law for his engagement on behalf of a client, including compliance with all applicable lobbying disclosure requirements. Consultant would also consult with client regarding any activities under this agreement that require lobbying, registration, and disclosure. Here's the scope of the services. The consultant is retained by the client, which is Mr. Torrance Hatch, which is Boosie, to provide exclusive strategic advisory advocacy service for the sole purpose of seeking and securing a full presidential pardon for charges to which the client has pled guilty in the matter of U.S. versus Torrance Hatch, case number blah, 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 in the United States District Court for the Southern District of California. The primary and exclusive objective of this engagement is to obtain a presidential pardon for the client's conviction under Title 18 USC 922 G1 as expeditiously as possible. To achieve this objective, the consultant service shall include, but are not limited to, the following: pardon, petition, strategy development, crafting and compelling a comprehensive narrative for the pardon petition, emphasizing mitigating factors such as the client's acceptance of responsibilities, extensive community and charitable work, the nonviolent nature of the predicate offenses, and the unique procedural history of the matter, and the impact of the conviction on his family and the ability to provide work for them. Department of Justice Advocacy, preparing and submitting and managing a formal petition for the pardon of the office. Managing a formal petition for pardon with the office of the pardon attorney within the U.S. Department of Justice. This includes direct lobbying and engagement with senior officials in the pardon office to advocate for a favorable recommendation. Okay, White House engagement and also executive advocacy. Okay, let's keep reading. Clarification limitation. Client acknowledges and agrees that the power to grant a pardon rests solely and exclusively with the President of the United States. Consultant makes no promise, representation, or guarantee to the outcome of the presidential or the presidential pardon petition. And the services provided under this agreement are strictly for lobbying and strategic advisory purposes, and they're separate from any legal representation related to the client's sentencing or any subsequent appeal in the matter. All activities will be conducted in full compliance of the Lobbying Disclosure Act and all other applicable federal laws and ethics regulation. Here's the term of the engagement. The term of the engagement shall commence on the date when it signs, but it will go until either a full presidential pardon is going to be secured or by the close of business on July 31st, 2025, whichever occurs first. So when this is confusing. Oh, it's going to commence, not end, my bad. Okay, so it was going to start then. Cool. Upon the occurrence of either event, the engagement... Wait, what? No. It commenced on the date signed, but why did it say it's going to go until January 31st, 2025 if this thing is already dated September 25? It's like post-dated kind of. Whatever. Billing matters. Retainer fee. In consideration for the services described in the scope of the services, client shall pay the consultant a flat fee retainer of $600,000, subject to the contingent refund condition described below. So there's a non-refundable portion. $300,000 of the retainer fee is non-refundable and shall be considered earned in full by the consultant upon receipt of service rendered and to be rendered. So basically, as long as they claim that they tried, you can't get the $300,000 back. They said there is a contingent, though, for a refundable portion. If a full presidential pardon for the matter is not secured by the client by the close of business day on January 31st, 2025, consultant shall refund $300,000 to the client. This refund is conditioned upon the following procedure. The client must submit a written request to the consultant for a refund. The consultant will return the funds within 3 business days of receiving the request, and the funds shall be transferred via bank wire to a bank account designated in writing by the client. The entire retainer fee of $600,000 is due upon the execution of the agreement, and the consultant shall have no obligation to commence services until the money has been paid. Expenses. The flat retainer fee is inclusive of all the consultant's time and ordinary administrative and operational expenses. The retainer does not exclude extraordinary pre-approved out-of-pocket expenses such as non-local travel, which shall be billed to client only after receiving prior written authorization from the client. Okay. We can kind of skip some of this here. It looks like Boosie's owed $300,000. If you ask me, it appears that they say in writing, as long as we tried, we're not going to give you back $300,000 of the $600,000. But if we can't get a pardon by a certain time, and you ask for your money back, we will give you your money back. And shit, this seems like this is a contract. This is a contract. This is a retainer agreement. So Boosie might have a point. I'm not sure why they're not trying to return his money. I'm surprised that Boosie has this in writing. They're not trying to return his money. So far, the pair have refused, citing a over. Oh, okay. So that's why they're not returning it. They said the pair has refused, but they're refusing to return even the $300,000 because they're saying it's an overrun of cost. in conversations with Boosie's lawyer. What? They also said they're effectively bankrupt. What? J.M. Berkman Associates said in a statement, no provision to return half of the fee was actually ever agreed to, but we just see it in paperwork. What the hell? That is the first known arbitration taken against a pardoned lobbyist or a firm during Trump's second term. Boosie's legal action underscores the high-stakes pardon economy that's taken shape as Trump's returns to the White House and fundamentally changed how pardons are decided. In previous administration, the Justice Department has traditionally housed the formal pardon process before presenting qualified candidates to the president. The process is largely absent under Trump's administration. So basically, the Justice Department aren't bringing it to Trump anymore. It could be anybody bringing it to Trump, right? Where instead a handful of White House aides routinely guide who is considered for a pardon. The president has the final word when it comes to pardons, and his pardon powers is nearly absolute for federal cases. The changes have fostered a growing clemency economy outside the White House where people with ties to Trump or his aides sell their influence for those looking for a pardon. Millions of dollars have been paid to lobbyists, lawyers, and pardon advocates to petition the White House for their clients' clemency, with no real oversight on over who outside of the White House is profiting and whether they can deliver on promises. Wow. Federal lobbyists disclosed that more than $2.1 million last year from criminals and other legally imperiled people looking to secure pardon or clemency from President Donald Trump is likely an undercount. At least $815,000 of that was spent during the fourth quarter of 2025, according to new disclosure filed under the Lobbying Disclosure Act, and some of the money went to lobbyists whom Trump previously pardoned for their own crimes. At least one of the lobbyists assisted person was successful in securing a Trump pardon, which is Joseph Schwartz, a former nursing home executive who was sentenced in 2025 to 3 years in prison for his role in a $38 million tax fraud scheme. Trump pardoned him, who paid $1.1 million in 2025 for lobbyists and clemency. Wow, okay. The day before Trump signed that, they reported received, okay, all right. So this is like big business. This is big business. J.M. Berkman and Associates, the firm blah, blah, also reported receiving $10,000 during the fourth quarter of Tim McPhee, who pled guilty in August 2025 to charges of an investment scheme. McPhee has paid the firm $170,000 since the end of 2024 to lobby on a DOJ issue. The presidential pardon lobby phenomenon has grown lucrative during Trump's second term. Some argue it's about fighting injustice, like in the case of Anne Pragmamore, the former CEO of the utility company Commonwealth Edison, who was convicted for a larger role in a bribery scheme involving then Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. It's a lot of money here, huh? So Boosie got took $600,000. Boosie got took. Damn, Boosie might need to get back on Vlad. That's interesting. Presidential pardons. So they're selling them shits.
The four presidents.
We also hear that Trump is now considering, I don't know if there's a lobbyist for this, but he's considering granting Diddy clemency.
Carved into Mount Rushmore, collectively issued more than 1,100 presidential pardons combined. President Trump, who's visiting there tonight, has out-pardoned them all and is now adding more pardons. Here's Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes.
His name was discussed, but when President Trump's pardon list came out this afternoon, Sean Diddy Combs, convicted last year on prostitution-related charges, was not on it. Instead, Trump said he was pardoning 6 people who he claimed were persecuted by the Biden administration and sentenced to prison for what Trump described as fixing their car. The 6 were all convicted of pollution violations, including tampering with air pollution control equipment in vehicles.
Happy Independence Day.
On the eve of the nation's birthday, Trump plans to celebrate tonight here in the nation's heartland at Mount Rushmore, where some supporters have mused about adding Trump's face to the tableau. In 2020, Trump said, "It sounds like a good idea to me." Earlier this year, he even reposted AI images squeezing him in alongside Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt.
I don't know any way that it would be possible.
Diana Nielsen.
Yeah, I've heard about, some people being able to, there's certain people with the ear of the president that, I don't know if they take money though, but when I heard about Kodak's pardon, Lil Wayne's pardon, I heard there was a particular, there's a few individuals, I won't say their name, they were really, they intimately dealt with that. I don't know if they got paid, but they definitely kind of guaranteed it. And supposedly all of those people who got pardoned at once, it was the same person who kind of got in the ear of Trump to get those pardons all together. So, I don't know.
Today, President Trump announced he was pardoning Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar and his wife, who were indicted last year on bribery and money laundering charges. They were alleged to have accepted roughly $600,000 in bribes and entities connected to Azerbaijan. The president said Cuellar was targeted for criticizing President Biden's border policies. As White House correspondent Liz Landers reports, it's the latest in a series of controversial pardons the president has signed.
To help explain some of these controversial pardons, we're joined by Liz Oyer. She served as the Department of Justice.
So apparently, again, Trump just got this pardon shit going crazy.
Pardon attorney in the Biden administration. Liz, thank you so much for joining NewsHour. Let's start with this news about the Democratic congressman who was pardoned today, Henry Cuellar. How does this fit into a larger pattern that we've seen from President Trump pardoning elected officials?
Donald Trump has pardoned historic numbers of elected officials. Typically, crimes involving public corruption are taken very seriously, and corrupt public officials are rarely considered for presidential pardons because of the betrayal of public trust that's involved in the underlying crimes. In this case, Donald Trump is really sort of normalizing public corruption by liberally pardoning corrupt public officials who are charged with offenses that involve abusing their political offices to enrich themselves. That's the case with this congressman. Notably, this congressman had not yet stood trial for these charges. So, Trump is saying that this was an unfair prosecution in some way by the Biden administration. If that is the case, we could expect that that would play out in front of a jury with an acquittal. But rather than allowing that process to play out, Trump has intervened and granted him a presidential pardon.
Let's turn to this pardon of the former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez. He was convicted of the private equity.
Able to tie any supposedly fraudulent representations to Mr. Gentile.
How many of these white-collar pardons or commutations?
And that's where I think Boosie might get the short end of the stick. I think Trump is much more likely to pardon people who have done white-collar crime, fraud, bribery, misappropriated funds. But when you hear gun, even though, he did it for Young Boy. So Young Boy got that pardon. And obviously he did that for Lil Wayne as well. But I think, if you ask me, if Trump is going to pardon black people, he gets a couple black people who are notable in the black community. And he's like, yo, listen, this is for y'all niggas right here. Honestly, that's what I really feel like he does. And which you still can't look a gift horse in his mouth because, again, a pardon's a pardon.
Has the president approved, and why?
The majority of Trump's pardons to date, setting aside the January 6 pardons, have related to fraud or white-collar types of crimes. And what's so staggering about the pardons is the amount of lost money that's involved in these cases. Victims of these frauds that have now been pardoned are out over $1 billion. And Donald Trump has essentially wiped out the obligations of these folks who've received the pardons to pay back that money to their victims. We've seen some very large fraudsters receive the benefit of pardons, and it is greatly beneficial to them financially because they then no longer have to pay back the debts that they owe to their victims.
Is there a way to rein in the power of the presidential pardon?
The Constitution gives the president very broad discretion to do whatever he wants. Ultimately, with the pardon power, he does not have to follow the recommendations of the Justice Department, and that has been a problem. I will say that there are things that could greatly improve the transparency and accountability of the president for pardon decision-making that could be done without amending the Constitution. One thing is more congressional oversight of the pardon process. They could readily require that the president disclose his rationale for granting pardons, promptly disclose the decisions when they are made, and they could also legislate disclosure requirements for those involved in lobbying for pardons and doing legal representation of individuals seeking pardons.
What do Trump's pardons say about his broader views on justice?
Donald Trump seems to pardon people in whom he sees something of himself. So the pardon of Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, is an example of another world leader who was prosecuted for crimes involving the abuse of his office. And Donald Trump can relate to and empathize with that person, and he got a pardon.
Also, Trump likes to basically pardon corrupt officials. Boosie, you probably did a wrong crime, gang.
As a result, he's pardoned many corrupt elected officials. He's pardoned people who support him personally or politically, sort of as a reward for their loyalty to him. He also is using the pardon power in a way that's very destructive to the justice system more broadly. He's pardoning people, in many cases, who have not yet begun to serve their sentence, or in some cases, as in the case of Representative Cuellar, has not even been tried before a jury, and that has the effect of undermining cases that his own Justice Department is actively pursuing. That is a very unusual way for a president to wield the pardon power.
Liz.
Okay, all right. Boosie, they got you, bro. Is Boosie still even putting out interviews on like his own website? Boosie Patreon. He was doing the interviews on his own website. Yeah, it looked like there's part 1 and part 2. Looked like he never did anything more. He has 2,700 members, which you could join for free. Huh. Shout out to Boosie, man. Boosie might need to get back on Vlad. I ain't even gonna lie to you. That 25,000 that Boosie was getting, I don't know why he was complaining, bro. I don't know why he was complaining. That was probably the easiest money that Boosie could have made. But Boosie was not happy. All right.